Hey everybody, today on Meaning Forge, I have with me Dr. Joe Perez. He's also known as the Dr. Joe. He is a 2021 Thought Leader of the Year, leader in business analyst. He is a leader in business analytics and an international keynote speaker. So join us today as we explore how Dr. Joe makes, embodies, and shares meaning in his life. There we go. Hey, Dr. Joe, welcome to Meaning Forge.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's my pleasure and honor to be here with you.
Well, we just real quick, we briefly know each other through an acquaintance that we both share, which is Dr. Holly.
Yes.
From Dr. Holly Speaks, and you reached out to me after seeing some of her stuff and was like, I like this, and so welcome into this process. It's a great process, I promise.
I have no doubt of that, Jim.
So first off, the way we'll start this off as we are in the life story is the dreaded interview question. And the dreaded interview question is actually, in this case, really like, tell me about yourself, for like where you're from, to kind of how you got to where you are now, and then we'll start diving a little bit more into those things, and then start going into the hammer.
That sounds great.
So tell us about yourself, Dr. Joe.
All right. Well, where am I from? Even though I live in North Carolina, I've been here for years. I consider myself to be a transplanted North Carolinian. I actually grew up in Central Florida, little town called Sanford between Orlando and Daytona Beach. I call it little because that's what it was when I was a kid. It's not a little town anymore, I mean, it's got its own international airport, for crying out loud. But it was a bit small when I grew up there. Um, so, but I'm here now, and I'm enjoying life, and trying to make a home here for my family, and um, enjoying it every minute. Well, maybe not every minute, but try to anyway.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And as far as what I do, so I'm a senior systems analyst and team lead at the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. I've been there for about the last DHHS, we'll call it that. It's easier to say DHHS. That's my full-time job. On top of that, fractionally, I'm also Chief Technology Officer at Solentech Corporation. At DHHS, besides all the cool technical things that I get to do, in helping to run a data warehouse and show people the in and outs of the data analytics, the leadership part of my job at DHHS involves determining how programs, data, and processes are put together, and then take it all apart and figuring out how to make everything together work together more efficiently. And that largely entails dealing with a huge group of stakeholders. These people have differing needs and often conflicting interests, and I didn't have to bring these people together to develop, negotiate, compromise, and implement viable solutions that hopefully they'll all be happy with, while at the same time making sure everything's documented so that we know how the solution works and how to make it work better the next time around. Now, on the side, I speak at conferences, dozens of them actually every year. Pretty decent variety of topics, mainly focused on data storytelling, bringing life to data and data to life, driving decisions with data, effective data storytelling, leadership development, professional development, change management, facilitating innovation, driving innovation, and things like that. Again, I really, really enjoy what I do. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like I wear too many hats, but that's where I'm from and what I do.
Thank you for sharing all those. And I guess the first question I have to ask is what were the events that led up into diving into system analytics? Why that field? Why did you gravitate? And also, how did you kind of gravitate in that field?
Sure. Um, So, Jim, after I finished my bachelor's, I started off as an educator where I stayed for 10 years. You know, I've always had a love for communicating knowledge. In fact, I still do that to this day. So, in the last 6 years of that 10-year teaching career, I started taking on increasingly responsible IT related roles to kind of supplement my income during the summer. I actually got pretty good at it. I ended up running the computer lab at the school during my last year of teaching. So while my major for both my master's and my doctoral degrees was education, I actually carried a double minor in computers and theology. And so between that second love for technology and those summer jobs, well, that's when my focus started shifting to technology full time. So I left the school for an IT related role at NC State University. Had good recruiters. For the next 25 years, I rose through the ranks at NC State from computer consultant to analyst programmer to computer training manager, and then finally business intelligence specialist. Now, I never stopped loving education, Jim. As a matter of fact, in my role at the university, they leveraged my communication and instructional design skills by my getting to put together all the training programs for my department and speaking at university workshops and conferences about the reporting solutions that my team designed. And of course, that also fed my love for data analytics and reporting even more, which is what attracted the amazing people who recruited me away from the university to work at DHHS. All right. So, as it turned out, um, this would be about maybe 5.5 years ago or so. DHHS was looking for somebody with both a technical background and practical knowledge of how processes and institutions work. They also needed someone with strong communication skills to bring disparate parties together, those stakeholders I talked about, plus somebody who had a passion for business intelligence to be the catalyst to spearhead some of these data analytics initiatives that they were looking to launch. At the time, they couldn't do it because they didn't have anybody with that talent, with that desire, with that passion until I came along. So they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I mean, it was a major promotion for me and an excellent move for my career, Jim. But more importantly, for my family. So, long story short, I took the job, and like I said, I've been there for about 5 years now. So that's pretty much how it all came about.
So far, I'm kind of like picking up on this desire to share knowledge, right?
Yes,
And I guess maybe I'm still a little unclear as to why system analytics, why go into that,
sure.
and how does sharing knowledge come into that?
That's a good question, Jim. Um, You see, in sharing knowledge, you have to connect people. You have to know how people think. You have to know how the education process works. And I knew that and still do. Um, and knowledge, I don't see knowledge as any different than data. Communicating knowledge to me is akin to creating a report. A report has information that you want to communicate. In order to be an effective communicator, again, I have to understand my material and I have to understand my audience. I have to know what their needs are.
Mhm.
I have to know how they learn. I have to know how they talk. I have to know what they're looking for. And if they are looking to either make a decision, answer a question, or solve a problem, that means that somehow they're going to get insight from what I teach them, what I show them. So when you're in a situation, in this case, when I was working for the university, being an educational institution and having been an educator, it was just a perfect intersection for me to see that, okay, the things that I'm communicating to them, I can either be communicating about art, history, science, Bible, economics, whatever Spanish, whatever subject I happen to be teaching, In the same way, I can be communicating data. I can be communicating statistics. I can be communicating the results of some um, some historical trend that they're trying to look at in graduate education, the applicant rate, the turnover rate, the graduation rate. How long does it take people to complete a degree? How does that time or how does that statistic change over time? Does it change according to what discipline that you're in? That you're in the arts, you're in the sciences, you're in the humanities. What is the breakdown by gender? What is the breakdown by ethnicity? What is the breakdown by country from different countries of the world? Do foreign people take longer to complete than domestic people? Do folks going into their master's degree, where does the population come from, and so forth? So all these things are stories that are being told. All these things are narratives that are built around data. And in knowing how to construct a narrative as I'm constructing a lesson plan to teach some subject, just kind of dovetailed really nicely into being able to tell a story with data. And so the best way to do that is to have somebody who can tell a story and who knows data. So the two kind of intersected very nicely with me. So I guess hopefully that answers your question to
No, no,
see,
it does.
how it all progressed.
It does, and I think there's also something that you mentioned. You mentioned in passing. I'm very interested in actually.
Yeah.
So you had a minor, you said in computers, and or you had some combination, right, where theology
Hmm.
was in there.
Yes.
Why
Double minor,
theology?
double minor in computers and theology. So yeah, that speaks to another passion of mine. Um, I'm a Christian. I don't make any bones about it. I don't bang anybody over the head with it, nor at the same time to the other extreme, I'm not ashamed of it either. Um, and as a Christian, I felt like I needed to be as well prepared as possible for whatever contingency. One of the subjects that I taught was Bible, and so in the theology major, it's a curriculum that is probably about 90% based on Bible, and then the other 10% based on church history and church government and that sort of thing.
Okay. So you had these educational experiences and this desire to share knowledge, communicate, educate, and kind of craft stories with these data points to help people make informed decisions about their life, their business, so on and so forth.
Excellent. That's
Um,
exactly right.
Perfect. Okay, and I guess one more question that I'd like to ask before we move on into the hammer
Sure.
is, what's a significant memory of, like, well, actually it'll be two. So what's a significant memory of you growing up that still resonates with you today, and why?
Oh boy, I like that question. I have a lot of significant memories. A lot of memories, some significant, and others not. But I would say that it was when my brother took a day off work to be one of the volunteer drivers when my first grade class took a trip to the zoo. Yeah, the Sanford Zoo. What a time we had. I mean, on top of that, he went through a great deal of trouble to fix up his bright blue 57 Chevy Bel Air. Beautiful car. I mean, it was a gorgeous car, but he got that thing to look like it had just come off the showroom floor. I'm not kidding you. Um, and he did it for me, just for his little kid brother. I mean, he worked really hard on that. And it felt great for me to tell all the other little kids in my class, hey guys, look, this is my big brother. This is his car. Wow, what a cool car. Everybody wanted to ride with me to the zoo in the 57 Chevy. I had the time of my life that day. You know, my brother, in his mind, he didn't count it as a huge deal, but it was huge to me that he would go through all of that for me, his kid brother. In various times throughout my life, my brother has been a mentor to me. I only have one of them, both in life and in my professional career. But you know what? that one act of kindness when I was a little kid, way back when, of wanting his little brother to have a great time at the zoo with his buddies at school. And you know what? That has stuck with me all these years, all these centuries, no, decades. It taught me that nothing is more important than family. That when you make a promise, you keep that promise. And that if you're going to do something, don't just do it halfway or half-heartedly. No, give yourself to the task 120%. And well, that's kind of like how I've tried to approach life ever since. Significant memory? Yeah, I would say that's really significant. My brother set the bar pretty high for me, in my opinion. And now, all these years later, it's up to me to hopefully match that and maybe even set that bar even higher.
Is it too much to say that it's set both personally and professionally?
Absolutely, both personally and
Mhm.
professionally. I want to
Awesome.
be, what you see is what you get. I'm not going to be one way in one realm and another way in another realm.
I get it.
That's another lesson I learned. Yeah,
I get it. Yeah. So you have to be like being, authentic to some degree is important, and not everybody was going to agree with that. Now, the second question, because I lied
absolutely.
earlier, I said so. I think
That's
it's
all right.
almost like the perfect segue because it's the same type of question.
Yeah.
What's the significant memory with your family that motivates you today, and why? With your with your immediate family, wife and kids and stuff. Mhm.
So, immediate with my family, okay,
Mhm.
as in my wife and kids, I guess.
Mhm.
So, another significant memory. Um, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I've lost track. 12 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with meningitis, and it was a pretty tough time for me. Almost lost her. Uh, I consider her to be the best gift that God ever gave me besides salvation. She's my best friend, and to go through a time where you almost lose someone that is such a big part of you, it'd be like cutting off my own arm, or worse. There's a reason why wife rhymes with life. Frankly, she is my life, you know, and and for our 25th wedding anniversary, I had written her a song, and I rented out a restaurant. We had a great time at that restaurant, and I sung that song for her. It was really a sweet thing, and we videotaped it, and I shared it, and people say, "Oh, he's such a nice guy." It's one thing to be such a nice guy and to go through all that trouble with the restaurant and the filming and the arranging and all that kind of stuff, but it's quite another to go through that stuff when the very one that you're singing about going through sickness and in health, the sickness part of it, when it hits you like a ton of bricks and you think that the next morning you're going to wake up and she's not going to be there, that kind of sobers you up a bit. It's one thing to write songs, it's another thing to stay up night after night and make sure she's okay, and make sure she's getting what she needs, and make sure she's not alone in that hospital. um, it was pretty tough. I guess it took over a year for her to fully recover, and that is very significant because her value to me was already incalculable. Something like that when she's almost taken from me and I have to literally give of myself to make sure she's okay. That made her, if it's possible to be greater than incalculable, in the amazing things that God did for us while she was that way, and how she was able to recover. Um, it's just something that I can't put words into. But it has been significant for the reason that we we look at each other with even greater value now than we did before. Okay. You cherish the ones that you love, and you cherish them even more when you think you're going to lose them. And they become more valuable, and you really think about what are the things that are more important in life, people, family, blood, more so than things and money and accumulation and so forth. So to me, that was that was really, really significant.
I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
can't imagine that, but I know probably a few listeners might be able to relate to something like that, a significant medical emergency or anything like that that it caused. That really, there's lots of suffering on all sides. So
That's for sure.
I appreciate you sharing that. We're going to go ahead and jump now into the hammer and
All right.
enter into the forge.
Okay.
All right. So welcome to the forge part, where we're using Molnir to kind of start to forge our. We'll go ahead and call it Excalibur for now. And one of the things that I want to dial in on is this idea of kind of pulling together different aspects of who we are into something cohesive. And here's what I'm noticing so far: education, like the need, like the desire, almost the need to educate people and to share knowledge with them, to tell, to some degree, telling good stories as well. Aristotle once said, I think, those who know the stories control, or something like that, control the world, something to that effect.
Yeah.
And then there's this idea, I think, that from your family story, right, with your brother in particular, there's this mentorship component I see coming out. And lastly, the devotion to people who matter the most. And in a way, this kind of relates to both brother and family, is be authentically yourself. So we have a lot of these attributes now. We have some of these materials. What is the hardest thing about bringing those things together to make who you are today?
Sure. One of the hardest things, I believe, that I suppose it's a bit of a struggle, you know. Um, I don't like to say no. Um, I don't like to turn things down. Um, I would say it's getting me to the point of not overdoing things, biting off more than I can chew, maybe learning how to say no more often and slow down to get some rest. Okay. There's been such, for instance, explosive growth with the speaking invitations that I get every year. All the podcast requests like this one, love it. People want me to write for their magazines. They want me to co-host their show. I'm already a co-host of a program and I love it. Okay. It's every second Thursday of the month, but I won't say the name because I don't want to, put in a shameless plug on your show.
No,
I
please
could, I could
put
resist.
the
Yeah.
shameless plug in. Put
Okay.
the
It's called
shameless plug in.
All right. Mind to Mind, second Thursday of every month, live on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
But you cannot miss the meeting forge. That's, you gotta get that too. All right.
No, you're
But
good.
anyway, um, I think I think 2022 is the first year in which I've actually turned down more speaking engagements than what I've got scheduled. That's never happened before. It's all by the grace of God, of course. I mean, it's a nice problem to have. Um, but I'm just that kind of person. I don't like telling people no when I'm asked if I can do something. I want to serve. I want to help. I aim to please. I want to be helpful. I know what resonates with people, and I know I can provide it. Well, I want to provide it. Uh, I may not always hit the mark, but I do try. But hey, you know, there are only so many hours in the day, and I've got to cut it off sometime if I am to survive. Just being candid with you.
Mhm. So, learning to say no is always a major component, and I think it's almost a trend that I'm beginning to see
Hmm.
in some of these interviews.
Yeah.
Um, so that's really good. And by the way, you can go ahead and make another plug in the summary, and then make another plug in your final words for your show. So if you want to go ahead and do that one more time, you're welcome to. You said
You
mind
are
to mind.
Yes, sir. You are way too kind. Mind to mind. Yeah, I'm not the host. I'm a co-host.
Nothing wrong with that.
With yeah, Tiffany Nielsen and I host that show. It's the second Thursday of every month. It's a talk show. We have
Mhm.
some back and forth banter and talk about different topics. And yeah, it's called Mind to Mind.
Perfect. Perfect. So don't forget in the summary, and then don't forget in your final
All
words.
right. Yes, sir.
So the bringing yourself together and learning to say no, and I think that's a big thing, especially when the idea of making promises and having a, I'm going to go ahead and say having a strong do say ratio or say do ratio.
Hmm.
Um, so that's always important because I think it's an indicator of character in more ways than one. And I guess why? No, hang on. I'm not going to say that. That's not the right question. So there's that, and then there's also part of the hammer is also like harnessing the divine, right? Like harnessing the
Hmm.
stars. In which case, I make a metaphor of the stars are your influence, and every single time it's like you're pulling people with you. And so, who has been someone who's influential to you from a professional perspective, and
Sure.
why?
Um, I would say my brother and my wife, and I know I say
Mhm.
professional, and that's more personal than professional, but really, um, I have found the wisdom that my brother has given me through the years. Um, Oscar just it's so neat to hear when he says that he's proud of me. Okay, that my our parents are gone now, so they can't tell me they're proud of me. But when he does, he's 15 years older than me. So yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I mean, it was more so, when I was a little kid, he was going into his 20s. Okay. But now we're both grown men. We both have, we're both fathers. We have grown children. He has grandchildren. I don't yet, but I hopefully will one day. Um, and I still look up to him. I still value what he says to me. I still, get the lump in my throat when he says, "Man, you did great on that keynote," or something. He can build me up, and he can also bust my chops when I need it too, because I do need that. The other one that's really good at that is my wife. And again, I know you said professional, and it might sound more personal, but no, she does have a profound influence on my professional life. Sweet, loving, amazing Diana. Let me tell you something, James. I don't know what I would do without her. I mean, she completes me. She helps me to see clear. She encourages me to pursue my dream. She spurs me on to continue in excellence at work, continually boosting my confidence on some days and knocking me down the size on other days, just like my brother. I'm talking about those days where maybe my head's getting a little bit too big for my britches. Um, Somehow, I don't know how she does it, but somehow she manages to do all that without being mean about it, without nagging. Well, for the most part, no, seriously, without nagging. So yeah, I do have I think I have my priorities in the right place, but sometimes I just need to be reminded, just like anybody else. So yeah, I absolutely, definitely acknowledge the need to have others in my life like those two. My boss is the same way. He encourages me. He knows my strengths. He play, I play up to him, and they those are just things that kind of remind me of who I am and where I need to go and uh, where I need to be.
So what I'll do is I'll just take that, and that will be a clip for you and your wife. That way, you know that she knows that you are good to go. Uh,
There you go. I'm good with
so
that.
so well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm assuming
Sure.
her name is Diane. Did I hear that right?
Diana.
Diana. Diana.
Diana.
Even
Right.
better.
Diana. Yeah.
Uh, yes, perfect name. Now I'm kind of going to like
Absolutely.
Wonder Woman, but anyway.
Yeah, she
Uh,
is. She is. She is my Wonder Woman. Absolutely. I wonder at how such a woman can marry this and stay with me all this time, you know? And yeah, I don't even have the lasso of truth on me, but I'm telling the truth.
well, the good news is that I think most men would agree that it's the wives who help make the man. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I
and
wouldn't
men
give a
who make
plug
great
nickel
wives.
for a yeah, I wouldn't give a plug nickel for a man that didn't feel that way, you know? I
Hmm.
mean, it's a biblical thing. We're and again, getting back to my, you know, the fact that I'm a Christian, okay, the scripture not dictates, but principles in scripture that I try to live by. One of them is loving my wife as Christ loves the church and gave himself for it. So I'm to give myself to my wife, and I am to honor her and cherish her. She is to honor me. You know, a husband that expects his wife to honor him isn't worth anything unless he's willing to honor her first, unless
Hmm.
he's willing to lift her up on that pedestal, to care for her, to protect her, even when she doesn't feel like she needs protecting, because she, in her wisdom, will protect you in a way, protect you from yourself if you listen to her good, godly counsel. You know, if you listen to what she has to say and don't move forward with that hard-headed stubbornness that we men tend to have when we don't want to go to the doctor. You know, so we're
Hmm.
just perfectly matched for each other. You know, in our personalities. I didn't mean to get off on that, but
You're
I
good.
agree that I wouldn't give a plug nickel for somebody who didn't feel that way.
There you go. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And I think we're going to go
Sure.
ahead and transition into the sword.
The sword.
All right, so welcome to the sword. Now we've kind of made parts of Excalibur, right, with a little bit of
Yeah.
love from the wife, some mentorship from the brother, some other things, and some of our desires, right. And so I
Hmm.
guess the hard question I want to ask to start right out of the gate with the sword is, what do you think your why is?
My why.
Yes, your why. What do you think the reason you get out of bed every morning is, and why?
Okay. So more than anything else, I want to exude excellence. Okay. I want to be known as somebody who gives 120%. I know that it's important for me to have a good reputation. I know it's important for me to um, do right by my fellow man. I know it's important for me to, whether I'm speaking, whether I'm teaching, whether I'm doing my thing as a senior systems analyst, whatever the case may be, that I want to portray the best version of me that I possibly can. Okay, and yeah, it's a motivation is yes, I want to be known for having a good reputation. I want to be known for being trusted. Trust is a funny fifth. I can't talk. I'm a speaker and I can't talk. Try that again. Trust is a funny thing. Okay, it's very difficult to gain, pretty doggone easy to lose, but nearly impossible to regain once you've lost it. And that's why I guard that trust very, 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 very tightly, just like I guard my reputation very, very tightly. I have a higher motivation, and that is of glorifying God. Again, I bring that up. I'm a Christian, and it's a thing that I do. It's a thing that's a part of my life, huge, huge part of my life, because I don't want people to get the wrong impression of me. I don't want people to have this caricature that quite often is made that a Christian is nothing more than a freak who will be lazy and not do their job or whatever because they're too busy with their head in the clouds or something, whatever.
Mhm.
I mean, some people have that caricature, and some people have been given a bad taste in their mouth by those who didn't exude excellence, who didn't do their best, who had this holier than thou attitude, who didn't um, um, count their fellow man as worthy of their trust. That's what I want to do. Again, I don't always hit the mark, but that's my why, is because more than anything else, I'm charged by Scripture to glorify God, or at least to try to anyway, and to give glory to His name. That when any good that you see in me, any success that you see in me, is just a reflection of His glory and His blessing on my life. And so if I give people that good impression, then they'll know, okay, well, Christians aren't so kooky after all. Christians aren't so weird. They're just regular people, just like anybody else. They fall, they have failings, they have feelings and failings and future, right? The three
Mhm.
F's. And that's the impression I want to give. That's to be real, to be transparent, so that again, this, as I said earlier, the what you see is what you get mentality, to know that I am real, and that when you talk to me, when I talk to you, you're going to get my full attention. You're going to get my very best, and I'm going to do it to the very best of my ability.
So I guess to kind of make sure I understood that right, what I kind of heard was within yourself, it is to exude excellence, to be excellence, right? So
Right.
it's not a fluke, right? Because excellence is I forgot how Aristotle worded it, but if effectively it's you wanted to have consistency and being excellent, and then it's also having that excellence. I always want to say subordinated to and aligned
Mhm.
with a higher power, which is which is God.
Right.
So I appreciate that for you sharing that, and I guess we're gonna get a hard part because the sword is that right to a degree where we're making judgments, we're
Yeah.
good and bad, and we're kind of in a way acting out our confidence in both of those types of things because you have to
Mhm.
if you bring out the swords, it might not work out for you very well.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of I kind of want to dial in maybe on a darker note here is which is tell tell us about a time where you went in with your purpose and it didn't like you failed, and what did you learn from that?
Sure. Um, yeah, that is a good a good question. Because you don't always do things right. You do have failings, and I do have mistakes that I make. It's one I'm not really too crazy about admitting, but we're being transparent here. So, okay, I was booked to speak at two different conferences located in two different cities on the same day. Okay. Now, to be honest with you, I thought for sure that I could somehow work things out. Maybe I could get one of them to move the date, but that didn't happen. Not only did that not work, to make matters worse, the funding that I was counting on for one of the two trips fell through. I almost ended up losing out on both events. Okay. I wound up, well, to put it bluntly, I wound up with egg on my face. Okay. I had to apologetically, humbly, kindly, sweetly, and humbly, did I say humbly, bow out of one of the two events so I could at least keep the other and save face. Um, the lesson I learned from that bad judgment is get out in front of the issue sooner rather than later. And don't use being awfully busy um, as an excuse. You'll come out ahead in the long run. If you get on top of it and stay in front of it sooner rather than later.
Mhm. The phrase that I learned a long time ago was "bad news does not get better with time."
Yes, exactly. And had I jumped on it at the beginning, it would have turned out a lot better.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
So
that things happen, right? And
they
so,
do. They do.
bad
Lesson
judgment
learned.
call, right?
Yep. It was a
Sometimes we
bad
get
judgment call.
overconfident
Yeah.
and we make a bad swing, right? And so, one of the things I kind of want to dial in on is maybe more of a metaphysical question.
Hmm.
Being a Christian and a theology guy, you probably will
Yeah.
appreciate this in more ways than one, right? So, I've kind of posed this in a few different ways
All right.
previously. So The premise of the question is, are we using the sword incorrectly? Right? And when we look at the sword in the Bible, we see a lot of different symbology, right? We see
Yes.
the sword being the logos,
Hmm.
being the word of God, being revelation, being,
Hmm.
um, in some cases, uh, there's even actions where we're kind of told, we might not want to swing that sword, or you might want to be very careful when you swing that sword.
Right.
Um, and so the question I pose is, how do you think you should be using the sword that you have?
Wow. I like that, Jim. Um, so using the sword wisely, using it for good and not for evil, using it not when emotions are running high, not when perhaps tempers are flaring. Um, a weapon is a tool can be a tool or a weapon depending upon how it's wielded and how it's yielded. Okay, if I am wielding the weapon, I'm going to use it to the best of my ability. I have to use skill and care in wielding that weapon. But there comes a point in time where I have to surrender and give up and not fight that particular day. That perhaps I yield my point, that I have to admit that I've been wrong in a particular situation. So in that case, rather than wielding, I'm going to be yielding. I need to know the difference between the two. As they say, pick your battles. Are you going to die on that sword? I'm not going to die on that sword. Or is it something that you absolutely resolutely have to take a stand and it's right and you're standing on principle and you're not going to give an inch? Don't give in that case, right? So I think the real trick, and I don't want to call it a trick, the real wisdom comes with experience and knowing when to wield and when to yield. I think that's what helps me the most in knowing how to handle the situation.
I like it, and uh, there's only one small problem with
What's
that.
that?
I think both of us would agree on is, when you say experience, that means people have to learn through action, and
Yes,
it's a very difficult process
it
that
is.
people are going to get wrong, and then that's why
Right.
there's some degree of grace required.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely. They say that experience is the best teacher. No, experience is the most thorough teacher. It may not necessarily be the best teacher, but yeah,
I
there's some grace. That's right. Extend grace to the one that has tried and has fallen or has failed or has not made the right choices.
Mhm,
Mentoring them through the situation when they have fallen, rather than criticize. Why not cooperate? Rather than yeah, compassion is a whole lot better than criticism.
mhm,
There's constructive criticism, of course, but I think constructive. I still can't talk. Constructive criticism is good only when it's coupled with compassion and understanding for what that person is going through, and knowing that, hey, you know what, it could be me. I could be the one. What would happen? How would I want other people to treat me if I have fallen into that same trap?
mhm.
So
Well, that is appropriate in more ways than one. So that is
hmm.
I think that was a great conversation around the sword. And
Yep.
now we're going to transition into the pin,
All right.
if I can find my mouse. All right. So the pin, a close cousin of the sword. I would
Hmm.
probably say of the same substance. You can still write on people's hearts with the pin, uh, or cut them,
Yeah.
however you want to define that. So here is the fun question. The fun two questions that I get to ask about the pin.
All right.
It does represent legacy and in some ways sharing knowledge, right? Kind of codifying that, sharing that with people. And the first thing I would like to ask is 2,000 years in the future.
Wow.
All right. So that's where you got to go with this.
Okay.
What is the essence that you want people to remember you by
Hmm.
and why?
Wow, Jim, that's a long time away, 2,000 years from now. Well, I would like to be remembered as as a guy who made things happen, who made a difference, who made somebody else's day brighter, who did right by his family, and who gave it everything that he had to, well, serve God and serve his fellow man. Now, I don't know if that would fit on a tombstone or not, in a small font, right? You asked me why. Um, I would say, Jim, if you remember me for being a great speaker, okay, well, then somebody else is going to be coming along and being a better speaker. If you remember me for being wealthy, having a huge number of things, well, that's not going to cut it either because you can lose things, right? What about fame? Well, nope, that doesn't work either because today's hero is tomorrow's zero, right? Today's hit is tomorrow's bottom of the barrel, okay? What's cool now is going to be lame later. You never know, all right? I'll say it like this. In the immortal words of pioneer missionary to the Auca Indians, this man named Jim Elliot, I love this quote. I love the way he put this. He said, "He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose." And it doesn't get much better than that.
All right. So I like that, and I really like the quote actually because it sounds like that should just be summed up right there, right? That's
Hmm.
almost the essence.
That's right.
Just piggyback with Jim there, not me, the other one.
The other Jim, right?
And
That's right.
so and
That's
so
right.
you know having that I kind of see that so far with some of like where the focus is, like with your family, your wife, right, and like impacting the immediate people in your family, and trying to
Hmm.
create that long lasting uh, impact that hopefully goes from hopefully generation to generation. So
Hmm.
now the second question is, in the same time frame, so 2,000 years in the future,
All right.
they're doing an archaeological dig on wherever your final resting place or like house is. Okay, and they're going to uncover one thing and one thing only. What is it and why?
Wow. Oh man, you're good. Well, hopefully not my cell phone. Um, there probably wouldn't be anything left of it. Yeah, I got an LG. That's what I get for buying an LG, but oh well. Um, I would say maybe, well, I can't say my piano because I don't know. That's made out of wood. Um,
It could be whatever you want it to be made
yeah,
out of.
okay.
It could be whatever you want it to
You know
be.
what? Okay,
Doesn't
all
matter.
right. I would say maybe my piano. That maybe they would uncover it and would see that it was well played, it was well used, it made music, it brought joy to many people. It wasn't perfect, it was maybe a little bit out of tune, and it had a couple of keys here and there that stuck. But she had it where it counted. And I love and that actually it does describe my piano. I play the
Mhm.
piano, and I love doing it to relax and to, bring joy to others and to my family and to relieve some stress. Whenever I should do it more often. But I mean, that might sound lame and cheesy, but it's the first thing that comes into my head that if I've known for the excellence that I talked about before, one of the things in that excellence and one of the things in the guy that gave himself to help others is that music is a big part of my life. Music is, I guess, the glue that kind of holds everything together. How I express myself. how I express joy, how I relieve tension. And if they uncover my piano, maybe they might see, okay, I wonder if that had anything to do with what made this guy tick. Because again, with the piano, I use it to sing praise to the same God that I claim to worship, the same God that I claim gives me strength to do the things that I do, who has blessed me and has been the reason and the significance behind everything I do, the one who gave me this amazing wife that I keep talking about, the talent and the drive and the passion to do all this stuff that I talk about. So maybe if they find the piano, they might find the piano before they'd find my Bible because it's made of more, made out of more durable material. And they'll see, they might ask, I wonder what he used that piano for. And maybe, maybe it can tell a story. Maybe a little cheesy, but that's what comes to my mind.
I wouldn't call it cheesy. I think that's a very appropriate symbology of Dr. Joe in more ways than one. So the way
You're
you
very
described
kind.
it and the way your story has kind of unfolded before us today, um, I think it definitely aligns. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And I hope that they discover that 2,000 years in the future.
Me too.
We will now go ahead and transition to the crown.
All right.
All right. Welcome to the crown. We're kind of like out of the forge now, but not really because the crown is still leading yourself and leading others, and heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yes.
Um, so I think we have a lot of material already to kind of start talking about, and when we start talking about leading yourself and leading others. And one of the things I really want to kind of dial in on here is from a system analyst perspective. I like to I'm a layman system analyst
Yeah.
myself, but I do it from a different perspective. Um, how do you help leaders reconcile their systems? And when I say systems, I like a business, for example, or whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
with data and information structures in order to develop the correct incentives to achieve their goals.
Hmm. Okay. What I want to do more than anything else when it comes to data, when it comes to leading, when it comes to the intersection of those two, is for people to see the relevance of their data, for them to see that, well, when they make decisions, all right, they might have a good intuition, right? They have great instinct. They have a business acumen. They know what they're doing, supposedly. All right. Um, but really, is that gut enough? Is that intuition enough? I feel that intuition needs to be informed in order to be accurate. Okay, the gut needs to be guided in order to be good. How's that for a bunch of G's there? Right. The gut with a guide is good. The gut without the guide is gunky. I don't know. That's stupid. But anyway, um, I want to use my influence to let people see, what is the relevance of data, um, that they ought to report on it in a visually compelling manner, um, um, to ensure that it is indeed used in driving their decisions once it's been gathered, summarized, reported on, extracted, and circulated throughout the people in the company or in the organization or whatever hierarchy that you might have, in the place that we're talking about. And once they see it as relevant, okay, then once it starts driving their decisions, they know that they're more likely to make more informed decisions, better decisions, that they're not allowing themselves to be led astray by just hearsay or conjecture. Point to it in the data. Do they see what's right? Okay. Are there systems supporting that? Are they giving them the data that they need? And then the individuals within the organization being trained in order to properly gather the information. Um, is everybody operating off the same page, right? Have you had full communication with all the different various areas of your business to ensure that whatever HR says, marketing says, IT says, um, outbound sales, whatever, that they're all reading off the same playbook, that they're all going according to the organization's mission, vision, and goals. You know, um, so I want to use my influence to steer people in that direction to adopt that philosophy. It's not so much a series of check boxes to tick off as much as it's adopting that mindset of, I guess, trying to get to one version of the truth. And where there's any variations of that version, those variations can be explained or applied. That if you have some new idea coming in, some new technology, some new direction that you want to go, then are people do people want to be adept with it? Well, if they want to be adept, they got to do one of two things. They either have to adopt or they have to adapt in order to be adept. Do they have that mentality? Do they have that mentality of being willing to change, of being willing to be steered into a different direction than what they thought they were going for the good of the company, so that we all achieve the same goal and we all get to the same place in the end.
I I get it, and I liked how you said it. Even though you backed out of it, you should
Yeah.
commit. You got to commit. Anyway, it's that gut is guided.
Right.
It's confirmed, right? Because you can't
Yes.
really. You can say all day you're going to go on a lifestyle change or a diet or something like that and eat certain things. But you still have to track certain things because
Right.
unfortunately, unless you measure it, you're not really doing a whole lot with it. Unfortunately,
That's exactly right.
and and I really liked how you started to kind of look at the broader picture. That's always a thing that's missing when we start talking about data and information
Hmm.
systems, is making sure we are level set across the
Right.
entirety of the organization. And
Absolutely.
and I'm sure you've seen it. A lot of organizations struggle with those things, and you mentioned it briefly, or like kind of in passing mentioned something to the effect of you have a lot of stakeholders with a lot of conflicts,
Yes.
and measurements and data and information, all of that can help provide that insight into where you have these conflicts and where you can have potentially disastrous undesirable effects on your business and your system, and
Hmm.
that also wreaks havoc on your leaders.
Exactly.
It makes leading a lot harder, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it
So
does, especially when they're going in so many different directions. Yeah.
exactly.
It's
Uh,
harder to build that bridge, to find that
mhm.
common ground, but it is possible. It can be done. Just reminding everyone of what is the end goal. You may have different ways of getting there, but if we can at least get aligned on this one truth, we all want the company to succeed. We all want to get from A to B. We all want to get there and be better off than we were when we started. At that much, we can agree on that much. Emphasize what we can agree upon. Build those bridges, and then deal with the divergence as you go along on that path.
I absolutely agree across many ways.
Yep.
Uh, and so I guess, kind of reflecting more on your personal leadership experience. And again,
Hmm.
and I think out there we have a lot of good stories of leadership, right? The feel good stories and all that other
Yeah.
fun stuff. And kind of in line with the sword a little bit, which is, what was a time where as a leader you failed
Mm.
and failed miserably? And what did you learn from it?
So rather than, I don't know, I guess I could point to um, one particular thing, or I can point to, um, the all of it at one time. I guess, I guess you can call it I guess you can call it a fear that I have. More than anything else. Okay, I feel that I fail when um, when I don't consider my decisions. Okay, that I'm going to make the wrong decision, and someone else down the line is going to be worse off because of it. Um, but you can overcome that, right? I just need to realize that even though I'm held accountable for my own actions as well as those that are in the team that I lead, I have to keep reminding myself that if I follow procedure, if I do my best to be fair and equitable, if I've not procrastinated, one of the things that I'm bad at sometimes is procrastinating. I can only hope for the best possible outcome and not beat myself up for some of the unforeseen things that will fall out because of it. I can only control my actions. I cannot control the actions of others. Maybe I can direct their activities to a certain extent. I can communicate expectations. Yeah, sure. I can expect perhaps compliance with the parameters provided in the chain of command or whatever. It's not an army, it's not a military, but at the end of the day, each of us stands alone, and there's only so much that can be done in a day. Um, I just can't sit here and play the old what if game. It's still a big fear, and I know that when I don't deal with it, I'm going to fall flat on my face, and that's that doesn't make for a good day at all.
I mean, I agree with that sentiment. As far as the idea that as leaders we make decisions, and especially the higher up you are, the more impact in the first, second, and third, and to
Yeah.
to to kind of pull from a good friend of ours or a good friend of mine. I don't know if yours, but Adam Smith back in 1776,
Yeah.
The Wealth of Nations, the Invisible Hand, right? The
Yeah.
like those we make decisions, and then across time they play out and people do things, right?
Hmm.
And so I as a leader, you can't go through every what if. And I think that
Right.
when you said, hey, if I can just go through maybe a minor one or like a few, continue to try my best with protocols, my best, make the best decisions that I can,
Hmm.
then everything will turn out okay. And understand that we also have to forgive ourselves a little bit too, kind of
Yeah.
going back to some grace.
Exactly. And there can be a lot of joy in leadership as well, I mean, just think about it. You have the opportunity to successfully ignite your passion in the people that you're leading, okay? That means the most to me. When they catch my vision and they're just as excited and enthusiastic about what we're doing as I am, well, when they get to be just as good at it as I am, if not better, I mean, that's what we want, is for them to be better than we are. Okay. I think that should be the goal of any teacher, of any leader. When your protege, your student, your whatever can exceed your own capability. Um, when they start showing leadership qualities of their own, and they start, say, mentoring others themselves. Oh, nice it is when learned they have, and Padawans they bring, right? I mean, I'm no Yoda, but that's how I see it. Do
I
or do not. There is no try, right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. That's going
yeah.
to be a clip. Just to give you a heads up. I'm going to do that as a whole clip.
Okay.
Your Yoda impressions. So yeah, I mean that's the thing, and I think that's the next step when you start talking about leaders and developing leaders. And so,
Hmm.
um, Dr. Joe, it's been great so far. So we'll go ahead and kind of jump into the summary
All right.
and start kind of closing things out.
Sounds great.
Well, Dr. Joe, this is so welcome to summary where I attempt to sum up this conversation, and I think it's been a great one. I hope the sentiment is shared.
Yes, it is.
And one, I want to start with thank you for coming on Meeting Forge, and for everyone out there, please check out Dr. Joe. I'll have a link to whatever I'm assuming you have a speaking website
I
or
do.
a personal website. I'll have a link to your personal website on where the people can find you, LinkedIn as well. And then I'm going to help you out. Don't forget Mind to Minds, right?
Yep.
And it says
Mind
on
to mind.
Thursdays,
Yes.
once a
Second
month.
Thursday. That's right. Second Thursday of the month. They actually asked me to do this every week, but
Yeah.
I'm too doggone busy. I can't. I wish I could. Really. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. Our next one is going to be on food for thought. And
Ooh.
brain thinking, brain food and stuff. I forget exactly how I'm wording it, but yeah, it's the second Thursday of every month is the word mind, the number two, and then mind to mind.
Well, if you ever want to start thinking about meaning and how people make, embody, and share that, let me
Hmm.
know. I'll be
All
happy
right.
to plug in. Uh, so,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so mind to mind,
Hmm.
second Thursday every month, and I
Yep.
appreciate that. Don't forget to hit that in your final words as well.
Will do.
And let's go ahead and sum up this conversation very
All
briefly.
right.
A man from Sanford, Florida, Dr. Joe, uh, comes up with like within his family, and his brother is a significant influence from a trip just by going to the zoo and helping chaperone that trip. And from that, you start to see the seeds of mentorship blossom, or at least be planted, blossom later. And during this time, we start to see his trajectory into education, communication, sharing knowledge to people to empower them and to make decisions in business or whatever that may be in their personal pursuits. To tell those stories that with data, right, that kind of guide the gut, right, and goes to school. Some things he gets pulled into computers and system analysis and warehouses and data, and from that we kind of we start going into the forge of where he is now. The hammer, the attributes of communication skills, mentorship, having cherished relationships with his close family that offer constructive feedback and criticism are important for anyone who is looking to become the next great person, right? And then we start shifting into the sword as he makes himself. He empowers people. Again, we have the same thing, right, through education and through data, to help guide the gut, right, and understanding that operating within this exuding excellence aligned with a higher power to be authentically yourself and um, to also have a strong do say ratio, to say the least. And there's lessons that we can all learn from that. From there, we kind of go into the pen, in which I'm going to just highlight here the piano as the symbolic representation of Dr. Joe here. Uh, as he said, it may be a little out of tune, but the intentions are still right. The music is still good, and the tensions there provide joy for many people around. And then we talked about leadership in general and how we can communicate data to not only structure the data, but also have it communicated to all the involved stakeholders to help not only a leader make decisions, but all people within that make decisions in context of a goal. And lastly, it's understanding the impacts of decisions that leaders make, and that's not always easy to understand. So we have to do our best, and we have to be prepared to fail. So I think that's a good summary. What do you think, Dr. Joe? Did I miss anything too crazy?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, Jim. Yeah.
So, as we kind of wind down here, uh, what was something that you learned from this interview, or did you learn anything from this interview?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I absolutely learned from this interview, Jim. Um, I guess a takeaway for me, it's how amazing and practical this whole discussion has been. How thinking of ways to improve is so vital to day-to-day survival and day-to-day thriving as well. How crazy it is for me to remain static if I choose to do that, right? Mediocrity is just a step away from stagnation, and stagnation is just a step away from ruin. Okay. How meaningless my life would be without my family and my faith. The questions that you asked really stirred up my thinking along those lines, which I greatly appreciated. Um, and for that matter, how honored that I am that you invited me to participate in this interview. Those are the things that I'll take with me. How you weaved, wove, how
Close
you,
enough.
yeah, right. How you wove this whole thing into the fabric of a weapon that one must either yield or wield. That sword, that axe, and so forth. In having gone through this forge with you. That's what I've learned through it.
Well, thank you again for coming on. And I guess the next fun question I get to ask is, what are top three books that you recommend people to improve themselves, or just that were formative
Hmm.
to you?
Oh, wow. There are a lot of books, probably
Oh
a
yes.
couple of dozen, but I'll narrow it down to three, okay, and not necessarily in any in particular order. One that comes to mind: Fail Fast, Learn Faster. And that was written by a man by the name of Randy Bean. He's the CEO of New Vantage Partners. Fascinating book, published just last year. Takes a look at data and practicality, and if you're going to do it fast. Okay.
Hmm.
The next one is called Your Leadership Legacy. That was written by a retired U.S. Navy, no, U.S. Army, yeah, U.S. Army colonel. His name is Oakland McCulloch. The guy's a genius. I just love reading after him. Great book. He has all the chapters end with study questions and reflections and stuff, making it very practical. This last one, definitely not last, absolutely first and foremost in importance for me, especially as a Christian. You know what I'm going to say: the Bible, the Word of God, best-selling book of all time, my rule of faith and practice above all else, a totally inexhaustible treasure of wisdom, knowledge, and practical help. So those are the three books that I would recommend more than anything.
Okay. And what's your favorite story in the Bible?
My favorite story in the oh my goodness, good grief. There's so many of them. I would say, well, I think it's um, well, Joshua was a pretty bad A. He and his partner Caleb stood when the other 10 spies crumbled and were dismayed by the things that they saw. Moses sent out 12 spies to view the land when the Israelites were about to come into the land of Canaan, and they didn't know what it was like. It was like one spy from each tribe went out. There were 12 tribes of Israel, 12 sons of Jacob, who were the tribes of Israel. They went and spied out the land to see what it was like. And it was scary because there were really large people that lived there. There were warlike people. There were obstacles and dangers and uh, cliffs and waterfalls and holes and wild animals and so forth. And the 10 spies brought back a bad report and said, "Oh, no, there's no way. We can't possess this land. Oh my goodness, this is too bad. This is too terrible. We can't do it." But Joshua and Caleb, they didn't sugarcoat it either. They saw the same enemy, they saw the same trials, they saw the same um, issues and problems and everything else. And they came back and said, "Man, you guys are crazy." I'm paraphrasing here, of course. You forget one thing. The problem, yeah, it's a huge problem. It's a huge enemy. But you know what? Even though the enemy's bigger than us, God's bigger than the enemy. And we are well able to overcome it. Yeah, we see the same problems, but we see a God who's able to take care of those problems. And let's just go and possess the land. The majority was against them. Their peers were against them, and those other guys could have ganged up on them. But they stood firm for what they believed in, and they were rewarded for it. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things, Jonah and the
Mhm.
whale, and all kinds of things. But I think that one is a good practical lesson for me to, even if I think like I'm in the minority, if I know that what I'm doing is right, I'm going to stand for what's right, regardless of what the crowd might say. And whatever the adversity may be against me. You say adversity, I say adventure. You say opposition, I say opportunity. I need to look at my adversity as an advantage, knowing that while the problem may be bigger than me, God is bigger than the problem, and I'm going to make it through. Just like Joshua and Caleb did, because they stood for what was right, and they recognized where they were in the whole grand scheme of things. So you know, that's that's one of my favorites in the Bible.
Perfect. I also enjoy the story of Joshua.
Yeah.
Um, all of them. I think there's
Yeah.
several.
Oh yeah.
No,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, Dr. Joe, thank you so much for coming on Meeting Forge.
Yes, sir.
And before we depart, I'll give you the final word.
All right.
And before that, there's a whole transition for that. I just wanted just to have a quick moment with the viewers. So, first off, thank you for watching this episode, and please comment, like, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and others. And Dr. Joe's story is just like many others that have come on Meaning Forge, intensely meaningful and a great source of lessons that can be applied to anyone's life at any given point. So take the time to add the experience to your library, and then find the tools that you need to make your sword and go off within your purpose and share your meaning in the world. So, without any further ado, Dr. Joe, it's time for final words.
Well, James, I wanted to thank you, or Jim, excuse me. I keep calling you Jim or James. I wanted to thank you so much again for the honor of appearing on your show. This is a great program. I highly recommend it. I hope people will subscribe and connect with you on LinkedIn and subscribe to your program, and really gain a lot of benefit from the amazing content that you put forth. I'm very pleased to have been a part of it. I'd also like to invite your audience, your viewers, to tune in to Mind on the second Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, to get a wonderful dose of, well, wisdom and delight all at the same time. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me via my website. Look at my speaker itinerary, and hopefully you can see something there that will help you if you need a speaker. So, as far as what I'd like to say to you this afternoon or today, Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Keep your eyes on the stars and your feet on the ground." I love it. You know what? I think that's a great balance of both the strategic and the tactical that we talked about. You have long term goals that you don't want to lose sight on, right? You also have an overwhelming purpose in life that you want to fulfill. So get out there and set those sights high. If you aim for nothing, you're going to hit it every time. And then while your eyes are on those stars, at the same time, keep those feet planted firmly on the ground. Remember the little things, the day to day steps of commitment that you'll need to take that'll enable you to execute those um, long range goals. So while you're doing all that, try to be ready for whatever life throws at you, folks. Okay? Keep your eyes open, keep your head in the game, and keep your heart on fire for doing what's right, what's good, what's kind, what's excellent. Exude that excellence, like I talked about. And you know what? By the grace of God, I think you're going to make it through to the other side. Remember, as much as you can, look at opportunity, look at adversity, look at all these things in a positive light. Look at adversity as an advantage, look at an obstacle as an opportunity. And I think if you remember that, again, by the grace of God, you're going to make it. Don't lose heart, don't lose hope, and just keep moving forward. Again, Jim, thank you so much for having me on your program. It was a wonderful honor and a delight. I enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best success, sir.